Hey, I was playing air drums there. I was
Oh,
playing
yes,
air
I
drums.
saw that. I saw
Yeah,
that.
yeah.
Wow, Peter.
I was playing air drums. Right, I
Yeah.
love air drums. They're my favorite instrument.
hmm
Hey, welcome everybody to Spin Legal. It is September the 2nd. Did you enjoy Labor Day? Because hey, we got straight back into this straight after Labor Day. What the heck happened to Monday? Oh yeah, it was a holiday.
Yeah.
Yes.
Didn't have much of a holiday.
Damn holiday in beginning of September, eh?
hmm
Okay. So welcome to Spin Legal, everybody. It is September the 2nd, 2025. This is episode 81 with Angela Browne and myself, Peter Giblett. And we are partners at Invictus Legal LLP. And somebody gave us an encouraging note last week to say we should keep up the good work.
Yeah.
Did you? Yeah, I loved that. Uh-oh, trouble's coming.
Oh, no. Who's coming?
Oh, we'll get to that. Anyway, it doesn't. Hopefully it's not a big issue, right? Okay, so let's move on. If you need to contact Invictus Legal, you can do so at 905-688-5598. Email Angela at angela@weareinvictus.legal or me at peter@weareinvictus.legal. And our website is weareinvictus.legal. There we go.
Yep.
Okay. And the statute of limitation, what it means and how it applies is the things we're going to be discussing today. So everything to do with law has its limits. Is that right?
Yep. Most things, you cannot just decide whenever you feel like it to file a claim.
Yeah.
You have to file a claim within certain time limits.
Yeah. And the Limitations Act, and this applies to all laws, right? So all laws that are governed by the Limitations Act 2002.
There are some exceptions. There are some exceptions.
Yeah, there are some exceptions, and we'll cover some of them, right? And I think it's important that everybody knows that there's reasons for limitations, and the basic limitation period is as short as 2 years. I'd argue that's a little bit too short. I'd say 4 years is a better timeline. But hey, I wasn't around.
It used to be 6, actually.
Sorry?
It used to be 6.
Yeah, in Britain it's 6. It used to be 6. I don't know what it is now, but when I was
they changed it to 2, and with some exemptions, could be up to 15 years.
Yeah.
So that actually got changed with Bill 14 at the same time.
I'm not so sure that I think 2 years is a bit too rushed, right?
Yeah. For some things, yes, because sometimes you don't know certain things or to the extent of certain things.
Well, it's as of right now, for example, one of the reasons why I think it's a bit rushed is, for example, if you're making, so here's the situation, you've just had a flood. So, you after some investigation, you find out who's responsible for the flood. And the first thing you do is actually contact your insurance company. Hey, Mr. Insurance Man, I've just been flooded out, right? But some investigation, you now realize who's up for the flood. But it could take a year or two before the insurance stuff is started. I think you should, A, sue who you know is responsible, and B, sue the insurance company.
Yep. Just to get the butt moving, have something in there to protect the timeline.
Just to have something in there to protect the timeline. That's why I say 2 years is a bit short, right? Because you shouldn't have to sue your insurance company just to protect the timeline. It's ridiculous, right? But well, there's some other things that we'll discuss as we go through, right? So it's okay. So, but again, basic limitation period is 2 years. Okay, so let me think about this. So I own a mine, and the dam burst on your dam in the neighboring land to me, and I haven't been down the mine for 6 or 7 years. And now I go down the mine, I send some workers down the mine. oops, the mine is flooded. Can I sue you?
The depends.
It's 7 years ago that you. It's 7 years ago that you removed the dam.
There's a discovery period too.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
And
So
then there are certain types of limitation periods that may apply to certain things. Like, for example, if you get injured on a roadway in a municipality, you need to notify the municipality that it happened within 10 days.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay, so there's a discovery period, as you said. There's a discovery date.
Yeah.
So you may not be aware that something, and I used the mine for an obvious example because it's out of sight, out of mind, right? So you've got an active gold mine that, for whatever reason, you haven't been digging up, but you've been reserving it for the future. And now all of a sudden you send a worker down there and you suddenly discover it's flooded.
Yeah, and then you can't, so there will be something there that, especially for contract, and, there could be a tort involved. Yeah. So there's a lot of different things we're looking at.
So what matters here is the date at which I sent the workers down the mine shaft.
When they discovered it. And when you decided to send them. Right?
Sorry?
You didn't know. The workers didn't know.
No. At the point when the point at which I say, hey, on the 2nd of September, hey, Joey, can you put a team together? I want you to check out the mines. Just make sure that when we can start mining shaft 12, right? So, of course, Joey goes down shaft 12 and then he radios back up. Hey, boss, this shaft's flooded. Right? That's the point at which we discovered the flood occurred. That's when my 2-year timeline starts to run. Yeah. Irrespective of when the flood occurred.
Yeah. Because you didn't know, they didn't know.
Yeah.
Right? So what happens is then you hear about it, go, what?
Yeah.
Right? Then you need to act, right?
Yeah.
But it's a very, and this goes on a lot. There's so many court cases that actually are about the limitation periods.
All right, let's look at a couple
discovery is that sort of thing.
So let's look at a couple of examples of this. The day on which the person with the claim first knew the injury, loss, or damage had occurred. I just used the mine example there because obviously it's out of sight. You don't know it's occurred until the date that you actually send somebody down to figure out what you're going to do next.
Yeah.
Right.
And that's a bad way to find out, but but unfortunately, it happens.
It does happen, right? Let's be honest. It does happen. You bought an asset. You bought it. You inspected it when you bought the asset, or you sent engineers down to inspect it when you bought the asset, and you know that it's got so much capability of gold within that gold mine. And now, of course, 15 years later, you send somebody down. The shaft, and now you're looking at actually tapping into that asset. The price of gold's right.
Yeah.
For example, that's one. Yeah, and that's the reason I'm now thinking of tapping into that asset. So that's the reason why, so the first time I know about it's the 2nd of September, 2025, even though I bought that 18 years ago or 15 years ago or whatever. Right. The other one is the date upon which a reasonable person with the abilities of and in the circumstances of the person with the claim ought to have known of the matters referred to above.
Yeah. That's like you drive your car all the time. You went in, got it repaired. Certain things have been happening. The engine light goes on. Oh, just put it up to another day. Oops. Hey, you should have known when the engine light went on.
Yeah. And that's when you may therefore run out of time because that's the point at which the engine light comes on. right? Exactly. Right. Anything else about discovery date that you can think about?
Different things like, well, motor vehicle accidents are using the date of the accident that they happened, and it's 2 years post-accident when that happens.
Okay,
Even though
that's
you
an
can't
interesting
say
one.
what?
That's an interesting one. You have an accident. You have an accident, and you're in a coma for 27 years.
Mm-hmm.
And now you wake up from that coma, and you have explicit recollection of the accident, and you can tell everything in detail, fine detail about the accident. Is it claimable?
It really depends. Did anybody else know about the accident? Do you have family members who found out about the accident? Like, obviously, you're out of the scene, you're in the hospital. Family members are going to learn that you're in the hospital and that you had an accident. So somebody's going to have to file what we call in law a stick claim.
Yeah.
That's another thing we use to protect time frames.
Yeah. Okay. Let's move on. Any other thoughts about discovery date?
Sometimes then there's certain legislation where things would be carrying, like just such as with the land or with the mortgage, like Real Estate Property Limitations Act. There are certain things in medical malpractice. There could be a statute of limitations that could go up to 15 years. Because sometimes something may have been done, for example, for surgery, and something happens to you, say 6 years later.
Yeah.
Right? You don't know, but it's connected to the surgery.
Yeah. So, for example, if you had knee replacement surgery and that was botched, your knee might feel fine until 7 or 8 years down the line. And all of a sudden, you've got a problem in it.
Yep. And then you find out something's been in there. So there is a reason why they can go up to 15 years for medical malpractice. Some other types of things you can sue, like for sexual abuse.
We'll get to the sexual abuse ones later on. There's a whole section about sexual abuse because there are some exceptions to the law in that regard, and I've covered them later. All right. Yeah. Okay. So here's another area which needs to be talked about: is minors in incapacity.
Mm-hmm.
All right, because if you're incapable, minors may know certain things, but until they reach maturity, the limitation period will not run.
Yeah, well, mostly incapacity, a lot of that is, or minors to some extent, but very often minors have someone like a parent or someone who would, or a guardian who could be litigation guardian, could file it on their behalf.
Yes and no. A minor may not actually know that something that happened to them, may not understand the full extent of something that happened to them until they may reach the age of majority.
Yeah, that's possible too.
Right. Incapacity.
I had someone who. Yeah.
Incapacity is another one because, for example, if you were injured in an accident and you were unconscious for some period of time, again, you wouldn't know about it because you're incapacitated, and if that was a temporary incapacity, you wouldn't know about the wrongdoing until you came out of the incapacity, would you?
Yeah, exactly, or something like that, where you would have like you would only discover this later.
Yeah.
Yeah, and then this is the type, like when you become capacitated, then you would say, "Oh my God, this happened to me. Oh my God, I better do something about it."
Yeah. So limitation period doesn't run during any time in which the person with the claim is a minor or incapable person. However, as you rightly pointed out, a litigation guardian can often assist a minor or an incapacitated person with a claim.
Yeah. And this is something that you file, and then you could be appointed through the court as a litigation guardian. Okay? Because we've had people who've actually grown up, but their suits were started by their parents because they've had an accident when they were a child.
Yeah. Okay. In the cases of acts, series of acts or omissions, so for example, it's going to be completely crazy, but once a month, you know, I don't know, so once a month something happens that causes harm to something, you know, to some of your property, etc., and that continues on a monthly basis on the 25th of every month.
Mm-hmm.
And it's not until the last ever time upon which that occurs, say the 25th of August, you know, 2025, that the ongoing series of acts ceases. That's a point at which your 2-year claim starts to run. The clock starts to tick.
Yeah.
And it's very difficult to actually think of an example in that regard.
Mm-hmm. Well, some things when they had this, like with the Human Rights Tribunal, for example, they've had a case, which is a case where a person who was for years, because she had a disability, they were paying her for less than minimum wage. And this went on for years and years. And then at one point, she got fed up with it and applied to the Human Rights Tribunal. And they were saying that all of this stuff was out of time because they've since terminated her employment. She was not working there. But what they did is this was a continuous claim over and over. And the last incident of discrimination was less than a year prior to.
Yeah. Okay.
So she was able to make that claim. And she got a lot of money out of this.
So she could then therefore recover. So, for example, she was paid $5 instead of $17 an hour.
Yep.
And she could, and let's assume that's a fixed amount, which we know it isn't. She would therefore be owed $12 an hour for however many years she worked at that particular place.
Yeah. In addition to human rights damages too.
Yeah.
For them to consider that you only have to pay people so much because of their disability.
Yeah. Okay.
So this was a very interesting case there because that actually allowed some cases that happened before the 1-year limitation period, but had some continuing implications between the parties.
Yeah. Okay. Okay. So one thing, attempted resolution can delay the date, according to Section 11.
Mm-hmm. So
what we're saying here is that basically, in relation to Section 11, if a person with a claim or a person against whom the claim is made have agreed to have an independent third party resolve the claim or assist them in resolving it, the limitation periods established do not run from the date of the agreement until the date the claim is resolved or the date the attempted resolution process terminated, or the date the party terminates or withdraws from that agreement.
Yeah.
So this might well be an adjudicated settlement process, for example. The one that springs to mind might well be a union, a wage negotiation type of thing, where that 3-year period, that period has gone on for more than 2 years, and has been, and essentially one of the parties suddenly withdraws from that negotiated settlement, negotiations.
Yeah, and these things are very difficult to go above an arbitrator.
Yeah.
Like going above an arbitrator, there's There would have to be a question of law to go about that.
Yeah, and essentially the arbitrator would be, in this particular instance, the independent third party.
Mm-hmm.
Right. And this is a rarity.
Mm-hmm.
Right. But the timeline is assured because of the fact that you have an independent third party, the adjudicator, who's actually, who's trying to actually make a resolution.
Mm-hmm. And also within certain contracts, you can also contract certain limitation periods.
Yeah.
Certain types of contracts, construction contracts, for example.
Yeah, exactly.
And these are usually between sophisticated parties, not non-sophisticated parties.
Yeah, and these are quite detailed, detailed things. Yeah, and as you say, business.
It's not like I set up something and I agree. Okay, Peter. It says if you don't pay me back, I can sue you in 5 years instead of 2. I can't. It doesn't work that way.
No, but where it comes
You're
in,
looking at things like, say, if a contracting company does some work for the government, and then there's certain things that might stop them from completion on a certain date, that no lawsuits could be filed at a certain point, because there could be something called force majeure and other things too that could interfere with it. As well, there could be another way, an arbitration process that's built into as well.
Yeah, and that's the whole point about this, is that we're dealing with a very complex situation.
Mm-hmm.
That's why you would have an arbitrator involved in the first place, because arbitration isn't something, hey, you're not going to go to arbitration, because you're arguing over $60, who owes who $60, right?
Yeah, exactly.
Or even you're not even going to arbitration if we're arguing over who owes who $70,000, right?
Yep. These are like multi-million-dollar contracts.
Yeah, you're talking about a lot of money and a very serious outcome at the end of the day.
Yeah, like certain bridges that were built.
Yeah. Okay. Another reason why a limitation period might not run is is a debt, a liquidated sum, right?
It would not run or would run?
Or, a limitation would not, there wouldn't be stopping a limitation period.
Yeah. Yeah, because generally what happens is sometimes, like, if you get a collection call and you owe a credit card money, and then you haven't used a credit card for years, and then all of a sudden the credit card comes back to you and calls you and says, oh, we want to collect this $20,000 that you owed since 2012. Okay? So I just tell people, I don't know about such a debt. I don't know what you're talking about. I'm not the debtor. Right?
Yeah.
Basically, one of the things is that they know they can't do that. But if you tell them that you're the debtor, says, yeah, I owe that. Yes, but I can't pay that off. That triggers the limitation period again. It starts the clock running. So there's a lot of issues around that too.
Yeah, the liquidated sum applies under Section 13, subsection 8, which is basically, this section applies to an acknowledgement of liability in respect of a claim for payment of a liquidated sum, even though the person making the acknowledgement refuses or does not promise to pay the sum. Right, so don't acknowledge liability. I don't know what you're talking about.
Yeah, that's what one person said. Like, yeah, my name's Jessica Smith, but I'm not the Jessica Smith you're looking for.
I'm not. These are not the droids you're looking for.
Yes, I'm not the Peter B. Giblett that you're looking for.
No, I'm not. I know nothing about anybody by the name of Peter Giblett.
Yeah.
I've never heard of him.
You got on the
Never
phone
heard
with
of him.
somebody, and somebody had something personal to talk to you about, and it was a debt, somebody, student loan or whatever it was. That was funny. And
Yeah.
how you responded was funny.
Yeah. Okay. Our ultimate limitation period. The burden's on the plaintiff to prove this, right?
Yep. Yep. And in terms of skipping a limitation period, going after it, and the defendant has to be the one who pleads it. The court isn't going to figure it out. The defendant has to plead it. And
yeah. So basically, if I'm chasing you for a debt, and the last time you paid on the debt was, 1978, the court isn't going to even look at it unless you say, yeah, but I don't, I didn't pay anything since 1978.
Yeah. And I thought they just went away.
Yeah.
So the thing is, like say, for instance, the plaintiff didn't know about statute of limitations and filed a case that was 3 years old. And then you get it. Hey, yes, you can defend it and go to court and everything else, but the court isn't going to educate you. So as a defendant, you look at this and say, oh, this is out of date. This is more than 2 years.
Yeah.
So then as part of your defense, you just say that this is not timely.
Yeah.
It's against the statute of limitations.
Absolutely. All right. And the whole point is, as you said, it's for the defendant in any case to actually point it out.
Yeah. And then if it's disputed, then let the court figure it out. And then the plaintiff would make an argument about why it is timely. You make an argument why it isn't, and and there's been many, many cases like that. Right? But there's some very clear case law around how the limitations period is being used, or and when it starts.
Yeah. Okay, so there's a few points to point out that you, as you said earlier on, there are no limitation periods for certain things. One of them being a proceeding based upon sexual assault, for example.
Mm-hmm.
And very good reason for that, of course, is that the victim of a sexual assault may not remember it for many, many years.
Flashbacks in their 40s, like one person I worked with.
Yeah. And in fact, actually, they could have been a victim of not just the sexual abuse, but against psychological threats, etc., etc. And at a certain point, those psychological threats wear thin. I will tell your mother about it, right? Mm-hmm. Well, that wears thin when your mother dies, right?
Mm-hmm.
So the psyche about, well, my mother's never going to know, suddenly now triggers the whole psyche about the damage that occurred.
Mm-hmm.
And there's been many, many times, and back in the past, there have been many sexual assaults. And the reason why there isn't, there's no time limit on sexual assaults is because there have been proceedings that based upon sexual assault, which have been stopped, where the person remembered 20, 30 years ago.
Mm-hmm.
And that's where the law has stepped in and changed this. Right?
Yeah, exactly. And this is where it's very important. Like some of these things, like I think we hear about these things on the news, like Bill Cosby, Donald Trump, Jeff Epstein, people like that who've done all these things, and people want to file suits against their estates and different things.
Yeah.
So they go in there, and it could be problematic because a lot of it's this Me Too type of thing. But you generally need a lot more evidence than just Me Too and filing for dollars.
Yeah, it's not filing for dollars. But then there's some other issues in relation to this. Misconduct of a sexual nature, if at the time the misconduct occurred, the person with the claim was a minor.
Yeah, absolutely. Because a minor doesn't know. Many times they're like, you're 6 years old. How do you know that this was not appropriate?
And again, there could be psychological suppression where the cause of the psychological suppression goes away.
Mm-hmm.
Right? If you tell anybody about this, I will do whatever to your father, right? Well, the father dies in an accident. Well, now, of course, the father's no longer around. The father can never be told.
Mm-hmm.
That type of thing.
Yeah.
So that's
what brought the one on that I dealt with. Her father died, the one who was causing a lot of this, and then she started the action. There was a lot of stuff because it does bring out a lot of family dynamics when this happens.
Well, I was going to say the next one that's on our list here is a proceeding to obtain support under the Family Law Act.
Yep.
Right. So you were talking therefore about family, and support issues under the Family Law Act also continue to run, even when a child is over the age of majority, don't they?
Yep. For certain amounts, and even if they didn't pay child support while the child was growing up, but they had to, they were disobeying court orders and not doing so. Yes, the child reaching the age of majority could start taking it over.
Yeah. Okay. The other one,
put it in their will. Like if they leave them out of the will, they can go right after the person's estate too.
Yeah. Yeah. The other one in here is actually assault of a minor. We're taking the sexual out of that, but assault.
Mm-hmm.
And again, there may well be reasons why the minor does not remember until they reach the age of majority, or even great deal later than that. One of the things we discussed on my law degree was we discussed a case about a lady who was a victim of an assault who didn't know about it until she had her child in her early 30s. It's going through the pains of birth that reignited that in her memory. And it wasn't a sexual assault. It was just an assault as a minor. And she suddenly felt in the middle of this that, hey, how am I going to be able to protect my baby?
Yeah, there's a lot of child abuse that doesn't necessarily have to involve sexual.
No, exactly. And we always have this tendency to spring to sexual, add the word sexual in there when you're talking about abuse of a minor. And it doesn't necessarily mean sexual. Right. Okay. Here's another interesting one about where there's no limitation period. To recover money owing to the Crown.
WHOSAP. EI payments that have to be reimbursed. CRA.
Yeah.
All sorts. So this is where you have to be very vigilant.
Well, when cousin Charles comes knocking on the door, I have to run for the bathroom now, don't I?
Yep. So this is the thing. There's a lot of different things that I actually have some issues with that, because I think that there needs to be some protection for people who are the defendants in these cases.
Yeah.
Because what if you don't remember, or you thought you paid everything back, or they have a mistake or made a mistake?
Yeah. Making a mistake is the worst of it, of course.
Yeah. And bureaucrats aren't perfect.
Yeah, especially if you're kind of 92 and hey, they just suddenly discovered they made a mistake and now you owe them $1 million, and you're a 92-year-old, you're just about to die and you've got $1 million worth of being cynical, of course, but again,
it is very cynical.
Yeah.
And there's people who owe say welfare, ODSP, CRA, any kind of government benefit where they have overpaid them for whatever reason.
Yeah.
Okay. They have administrative processes to dispute this, but it's very, I think that things have to be improved, where it needs to be more leveled out.
Well, I would say that money owing to the Crown is just the same as money owing to anybody else. Should have a limitation period.
Yep, exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And the Crown has a lot of resources to be able to start collecting or to file claims.
Yeah. Another thing is there's no limitation period in respect of an environmental claim where the environmental issue has not yet been discovered. That's an oddity.
Yeah,
That really is an oddity.
So we can file a suit based on something that hasn't been yet discovered.
Let's say, for example, mercury hadn't been discovered, but today I'm polluting the ground upon which our industry is based upon with mercury. Then in 17 years' time, they suddenly discover that mercury is not only harmful, but is detrimental. It has environmental issues going down 300 or 400 years. Now they can take me to court because they didn't know about the environmental issues that I was putting into play.
Yep. And this is like with this, it's same as PCBs, the action there, the action around the Love Canal.
Yeah.
Right, where they had to take legal action. A lot of different things where they discover something later on and then they say, well, this is harmless. People literally stick their hands in it all the time and they're practically swimming in it. Then they later on discover that's poisonous.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. And who's to know, the point being is that you do, particularly comes into industrial processes. You deal with an industrial process and somebody invented the process and think this is the best process we've got at this time. We don't know about other processes. This is the most effective way to make whatever it is we're making, right? And nobody disputes it. Nobody even thinks that it is wrong for the environment. Right? Everybody thinks, okay, that's the best until somebody discovers something else.
Yeah, until somebody starts discovering cancer clusters many years later. Yeah.
And they start to question it. And so it's an obvious reason why the environmental issues, that have not yet been discovered, so you poured waste into the ground in, I don't know, and you poured waste into the ground unknowing that it was actually harmful.
Yeah, like I say, Enamide, places like that.
Yeah.
And some of these things really have it. And then right now there's potential problems with cleanup, and they want to build housing on it.
Yeah.
I think that lawsuits should go to the people that put it there so they can clean it out until it's assessed as viable to build housing on it.
I think there's a few changes in the law that need to be had about the cleanup, but that's a separate issue entirely.
Yes,
right?
Exactly.
Yeah,
there has to be a lot more stronger enforcement.
Okay. So if there were some other areas where you found out about limitation periods, what would you advise our listeners?
Are there other areas where you find out about limitation periods? Well, there are lots of different things. We have to always ask a lot of detailed questions. When someone comes in with something that's extraordinarily unusual, we have to do some research. We do case law because sometimes there's certain types of cases that might possibly be something that could be exempt from the limitation period. Right? Like say if like I once did something to a court and there was a fraudulent case. So I did a fraudulent misrepresentation as a tort, and there was also charges of fraud against the party. And this was something that was after the case. So we were able to do that. But there has to be something going on with this. You can't just go in and, this guy defrauded me 50 years ago. Can't do that. Right.
Well, and there's a reason for that, of course. The reason for the statute of limitations, it's like, the
witnesses have died. Yeah, everybody's closed down. Nobody knows anymore.
Oh, and the other exception to the limitation periods, Limitation Act, of course, is murder.
Murder, yeah.
Yeah. There is no limitation on murder. And in fact, most crimes will intend to be, tends to be, the criminal code does not have a limitation period either.
Yep, because this is where you're dealing with a criminal act, and you hear about things like cold cases.
Yeah.
Right? So they got to go find out somebody who, like somebody died 30 years ago and was found, but they never found out who killed the person. So then they go out and they do cold case investigations and they interview people. And there are specialist detectives who specialize in cold cases.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know how they get the information, but a lot of these people eventually get caught.
Yeah.
It's weird.
Yeah.
We've had some here in Niagara where they found out who was the killer and they came after them. They got arrested. But this is where you don't have that type of limitation, because doing a criminal act, why would you want to do a criminal act and then expect to get off like 2 years later? I can't, basically you can't, because criminal code is criminal code. And
yeah.
Child pornography. And somebody who had, it was a long time ago, the person had child pornography, and then they caught the person later on. Even though he wasn't doing it anymore, it doesn't matter, but he had it.
Yeah, and okay, so here's another thought that I had. Okay, so if a serial killer, for example, were suddenly to tell their life story to a journalist, and they would make profit out of, make money out of the book, is it, they told of crimes, they got tried and convicted 25 years ago, and they suddenly told of crimes were not in the original conviction. Would they have any right to be tried again?
Depending a lot on things. Like if they suddenly, like they were only charged and convicted on one murder, but then they come back and said, yes, I did 25 murders.
Yeah.
That could possibly put them back in.
Okay. So again, for example, it's like, yes, and the bodies are buried at such and such location.
And they will actually ask the person to prove it too.
Yeah.
Okay? Like where the bodies are buried, they have to go, because the police will take them to locations where they say the bodies are buried and they'll dig it up. Okay? So this is a very, they take it seriously. But at the same time, there are people who will just bluff about it. Okay?
Yeah.
And it's just, you're wasting the time of the police. Okay? But if there's something serious, they want to have something there because their families want closure.
Yeah.
Particularly if somebody was killed 25 years ago and nobody who did anything, they don't know where the body is, and they had a funeral but an empty casket.
Yeah.
That type of thing. So you need to have the families to get closure on these things.
That was the one that was really concerning, because obviously if a person's been, a person like a Paul Bernardo who suddenly made a confession of a whole new series of crimes, obviously the police may well be interested in those series of crimes.
Yeah, and they might ask him, and where to find it, but he's never getting out, right? So it's not like he's going to have to go through another jail spiel again, but he's never getting out.
No, but I'm only using him as an example just to show that there may well be some areas upon which, those old crimes don't have a time limitation period.
Exactly.
All right.
But in terms of civil matters, which is usually what we deal with, they have different levels, and within the limitations period, that's where the civil matters are regarded. And it's done that for a good reason. Limitation periods are there because witnesses disappear, witnesses die. Places that are agencies that have had records, they close.
Yeah.
Records get lost, records get destroyed, computers burn out, whatever. things happen, so you can't really grab all the documentation to back everything. So that's why we have limitation periods.
Yeah. Okay. All right. So unless we've got anything else related to limitation periods, I think we can kind of bring that to a close.
Yeah. And we didn't get anybody popping in and asking questions.
Not on this occasion, but it does happen. And
Yeah,
hey,
we do have people coming in. And if you're watching, you feel free to write us and give us some suggestions.
yeah. Oh, and by the way, I do have what will be going on next week is why do I need to pay for a legal consultation?
Yep.
Right. That will be next week's show, and I hope you will listen. But just to let you know, if you need to contact us, Invictus Legal LLP, you can do so at 905-688-5598. Email Angela at weareinvictus.legal or me at peter@weareinvictus.legal or the website weareinvictus.legal. There you go. And for Angela?
Yes, what you heard today on Spin Legal, whether it's this show or others in a series, it's not legal advice. If you need legal advice, then please contact a paralegal or a lawyer. Hope you come to us, eh? But in any case, seek a paralegal or a lawyer who can address you in your own specific situation.
All right. And take care of yourself and stay legal, or at least spin legal.
Yep.
For the next week or so. And have a great day. All right.
Yep.